Friends, Jeff from War for the Tower asked me to say a few words about peace, love, and democracy. Now that this pesky election is out of the way, let's get back to doing something for the world and the poor people that live on it. Support Black-owned businesses. Write your congressperson. Read a book about climate change. God's damn it, get out there and do something good for future generations. Or listen to a podcast. Whatever you do it with love and be cool. Everyone likes you better when you're not being a jerk. Amen. warforthetower.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 7, Episode 10, allegedly. Journey to the Center of the Tardis. In this episode, there's a weird leak in time that causes creepy monsters that look like they're on fire to chase people in the TARDIS, and it turns out that that's them in the future, and that's a very horrifying revelation. And this episode, it ups and downs, but that was a pretty effective reveal. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jaime.
All right, Jaime. So I always like to hear your feelings about an episode, like compared to the first time you watched it. How you feel about it now? So, how do you like this episode? How's this one rate for you?
I like this episode.
Okay.
It's another one where I don't know what was going on, but I don't remember seeing this originally.
Huh.
I know that this season was airing right after I moved in with Jason. So I'm wondering if I just wasn't
focused,
able to watch it consistently at the time. Because there's some episodes I remembered, and then there's like gaps where I'm like, I have no recollection of this episode.
Yeah.
So this is one of them where I was like, Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, Natasha's going to be so excited. Yeah. You're going to get to see more of the TARDIS.
And this is what I've been wanting so bad, you guys.
Yeah.
And I don't get to see as much of it as I want because, like, really my main questions have always been about the livability of the TARDIS in day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And that isn't something that they really show us at all. Like, I want to know where Clara sleeps, if she does. Because she doesn't, like, it's unclear to me how much of a stretch she spends with him. We see her being dropped off after the first foray. And I don't know, do they go on an adventure and then he drops her off? Do they go on multiple days of adventure and then he like drops her off after she's had like a week? But I would like, that's the sort of thing that I'm very curious about. But I still enjoy, even though this isn't really the question that I had, like getting to see it's interesting that any of this is a surprise to her as well, because what that means is the Doctor doesn't give people the grand tour when they agree to become companions. She's finding places that she didn't know were there.
Yeah. And
I had sort of assumed that there was an orientation period when you become and you get like a packet and you get a tour and, you know, there's the occasional room like with Bluebeard where you're just told not to go in that room. Just don't do it. And doors that are locked, whatever. But for the most part, functionally, you get to know what's available in the TARDIS, what is the main layout of it. And this is a big-ass library that she finds that she didn't know about at all.
Yeah.
And that is a pretty big thing to not, like, share with her. And it seems like part of the reasoning for him is that it's like his name is written down there. But, you know, that's one book that's in a very prominent spot. You could just like put that book somewhere else and chances are she wouldn't find it. And then you could just let her use the library, dude. But, you know. So, yeah, it was such an odd episode too, because there's always new things that the TARDIS can do. There's always new, attitudes that the TARDIS has with some people versus others. And I still, you know, we don't really know what the deal was with the TARDIS not liking Clara. And Clara seems to be still sort of aware of the fact that they had like a fraught relationship and wants to be better, like be closer friends. Is that the way to say that? Get along more?
Well, she's making an effort because he wants her to.
Right. It's not like I think she sort of has the attitude that I have when I find out that somebody doesn't like me, which is just, well, then fuck them then. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, not fuck her then, because you live in her right now, and we can't have you guys being not buddies when you have to like rely on her to protect you probably at some point.
Well, I think she's also like, it's a ship. I'm not going to talk to it like it's a person. It's just a ship. It's like the reaction I get from people when I tell them I've named my car, I name all my devices.
What's your phone
and they're
called?
Like, my phone is called the Doctor because it knows everything.
Jaime, you are such a fucking nerd. Holy shit. What a nerd. The look that I just got on my face when you said that.
When I got my first iPhone, I was like, what do I name it? And it occurred to me that this little thing knows everything. It's the Doctor.
My God.
So, yeah.
I'm just picturing you in like some sort of like situation where you're incoherent and you're yelling for them to get your doctor. I need my doctor. And they're like, no, we're trying to get you to the hospital. No. And then they finally, your bloodied hand is reaching for your phone, and they're like, "Wait, what, is that what she meant?"
When we connect it to our Bluetooth speaker, it goes connected to the Doctor. I always think it's funny.
Oh, that is funny though. I'll give you that. That's pretty good.
But yeah, like people are like, "Why are you naming your car?" And I'm like, "Because it's my car. It deserves a name." And for Clara, she's like, this is just a ship. Like, you're being ridiculous. I don't need to bond with the ship.
The thing that kills me is, like, Clara, have you not yourself said she doesn't like me, she's not letting me in? And you're standing with a man who has a relationship with this ship that goes back thousands of years. Maybe listen to him. Maybe take his advice into consideration regarding something that you know nothing about. I'm just suggesting it.
I do wonder if it's stuff like this, like, added to why a lot of fans did not like Clara.
Oh, didn't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of people are not fans of Clara.
She's just sort of, so far, for me, she's just missing. And I think it's like, really has a lot to do with the mysterious woman problem. Mm-hmm. I don't even think it's like her as a character. It's just that they have made a device out of her, and I can't really I can't make myself interested in what she is. I don't really care. When the Doctor questions her later on, I was genuinely surprised that he still was asking the question. I was just like, are we still on this? Whatever, dude. And you're like, you'll find out when you find out. Give it up.
Well, he's not the type to do that, but he also isn't, when other people are like, she's just a girl. He's like, I don't accept that.
Yep.
And even here, when he's like, what are you? And she's like, what do you mean, what am I? And he tells her, I met you in this place. And she's like, it wasn't me. He doesn't believe her either. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't
I just wonder, like, I do think that they've made her sort of some kind of cipher. Like, she has little personality quirks, but they're not wholly defined. Mm-hmm. And he is fixated on this mystery of her, and then she is not... She's not like the previous companions who are in complete adoration of him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. She doesn't seem quite as consistently impressed with him in the way that others have been.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, is only a mark in her favor in my eyes, as we know.
I just wonder if and I'd be curious to hear from people in the audience who don't like Clara to, like, let me know, like, what is it about her? Because I've never really understood. I like Clara because there's nothing unlikable about her to me. But she also, in this season, has not given me any reason to be like, she's a top-tier companion, other than she's so beautiful.
Oh my God, she's so beautiful.
But she's not adding anything. And if that's the reason that people weren't big fans of her, I get it. But I just want to know. Because for me, back when she first showed up, I was like, she's so cute. She's kind of fun. But then I think I liked that original Oswin and held on to that a lot. Like, that character was well-defined in personality. And even the version of her that was in the Victorian time had very defined personality. And this Clara is not so much. I'm still trying to figure out who she is.
Yeah.
And not in the same way that this doctor is trying to figure out who she is. Because for me, there's not a lot of there. And I don't know why they're doing that.
Yeah, it's just like, it feels like they're just focusing on the wrong things, on questions that the audience doesn't really care about that much. But I may be wrong about that. I might just be one of the few that doesn't care about what she is, because it's sort of this, it's the kind of thing where I don't know that whether this is the case or not, but I'm making a guess here that there's no way for me to put together who or what she is. I don't get the impression that we are getting a bunch of clues and I'm missing the clues. I could be wrong about that. And they're just so something outside of what I would pick up on that I don't realize that they're clues. And that's like the point, right?
Well, it's kind of like the River Song thing. And this all goes back to my very early on complaint about Stephen Moffat and how he writes women on this show, where he makes them all a mystery. River Song is his creation. Mm-hmm. When he decided to bring her back and really start to flesh out some of the stuff that we learned from Forest of the Dead and Library of the Dead and whatever.
Right.
Suddenly, it was a mystery. Who is River Song? What is her deal?
Right.
Who is she to the Doctor? And we got a lot of personality infused in there. But overall, it was, what are you to me? That's what he keeps asking her. Mm-hmm. So then we have Amy, who was being followed through episode after episode by this crack in time. And it's like, well, so she's a mystery. There's a mystery surrounding her too. So then we get to Clara and like another fucking mystery.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, I'm fucking over it. I'm over all these mystery girls. I just want a companion who is a person that is traveling with him, like Rose, like Donna, just a person.
And and the thing about these mysteries, and this is kind of what I was trying to get at, is that there are two types when you're dealing in mysteries. You've got the one that somebody could figure out if they were paying attention and really good at piecing things together or making some maybe logical leaps. And then there are the mysteries that you are not given the information you need. And it is meant to be a shock when you find out.
Well, that's the kind of mysteries he writes, isn't it?
That tends to be. And that's what I am bored of. If we're going to do a mysterious woman, I want you to let me play. I want you to let me be involved as a viewer and get hints and start to put together my own theories. Even if they're wrong, that's half the fun. It's just fucking spitballing wildly. Especially hosting a show about the show. I want to be able to engage on the level of who is she? Who do I think? I've got nothing to go on here at all. At least I don't feel like I do. And to me, that's really what matters. If there are clues that are so hidden that I can't pick up on them, then they don't count as clues. That's nothing. That's just you putting little like breadcrumbs so that I retroactively will realize what you were doing once there's the big reveal and I look back. But that's not the same thing as a clue for the viewer. That's just you storytelling. And it's like, that's not, the storytelling thing has been done. And that's part of what makes these women feel like they have no agency, is that it's all just happening to them. And it's all just happening to us, the viewer, because there's not a lot that we can do to theorize.
Yeah.
If you give us some like pieces of the puzzle, then we can at least enjoy the theorizing while it's happening, and it makes us feel more a part of things and not like you're trying to maybe make us feel like idiots, which is like part of what some people's problem is with his Sherlock series as well. And I don't have that particular feeling on it a lot of the time, because I feel like the point is that Sherlock makes everybody around him feel like an idiot because he really sees them as idiots. So we're getting that experience and seeing how frustrating it is to be around him. Mm-hmm. But I'll say that for things like occasionally like Poirot episodes, there'll be this moment at the end where he'll be like, aha, what happened was you had a secret marriage and you are a Catholic and could not have an abortion. And then you gave the child up and this is your son. And you're like, how in the fuck was I supposed to put literally any of that together? And it feels like a cheat. Mm-hmm. And that is what not all, but some of these mysteries have felt like, is a bit of a cheat. And I don't want that anymore. I want something that like, maybe you did the bit of a cheat, or you did the stuff that we can't engage in, to sort of like give us an idea of how you tell your stories. And then you change it up a little bit so that now that we have our footing under us and have seen this before, we can treat it a little bit differently and feel like we're in on the joke. But instead it's like we're being pranked. We're not in on it. You know what I mean?
I just like the kind of mystery in a television show where there's little breadcrumbs that are sprinkled. Mm-hmm. And if you're paying close attention, or you're the type of person that analyzes TV while you're watching it, you're going to pick those things up. Mm-hmm. Or if you watch TV the way that I do, you may or may not. And then when it's revealed, I'll like think back and be like, oh my God.
Right.
All those little pieces were like, they were there. I wasn't thinking that way. Mm-hmm. So I didn't put it together, but it's all there. And that's more fun for me. This is really like, what it feels like is he's decided she is the impossible girl, and all will be revealed when he's decided. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like, there's for an example for me of like a clue that isn't a clue would be Amy seeing the lady with the eye patch.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, yeah, once we have it revealed, we understand what was going on there, and we're like, oh my God, that was happening that whole time.
Yes.
But when you're watching it, it doesn't mean anything to you. And even finding out about it as it's like with the reveal later of what's actually happening doesn't make it more important. It's simply like, oh, that's what that was. But there's not really the kind of like brain exploding moment that you want for something like that when it's revealed. So that's what I'm like feeling like we're going to get that with Clara. We're going to get a moment of like, oh, okay, so that explains that. But it's not going to be like, oh, shit, you know?
Right, because it's not going to be something we've come up with. or we've theorized as an audience because we have no little things to put together to try to make a theory.
Mm-hmm. And
right.
Worst of all, we don't really care about Clara that much. So any reveal about her, at least with River, I really liked River. And so what happened with her reveal, as much as I couldn't have put that reveal together myself, I cared when I found out because I like her and I was invested also in her parents.
Yeah.
But Clara, she's in this position where, like, you can give me a big reveal and it'll be maybe, like, interesting in terms of, like, theoretically, but I don't feel like it's going to have an impact because I'm not invested. So.
Well, the episode, the Asylum of the Daleks, where we're with her, he's talking to her. We aren't shown until he realizes it, that she's actually a Dalek.
Right.
When you watch it a second time, you start seeing, like, well, she is in this very oddly shaped room.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the eggs coming from? Why is she so dressed up? Like, there's all these little things there that you can question, and when you watch it a second time, you're like, oh, it would be a leap on your first watch through, like, she's inside a Dalek. But when you watch it, you're like, oh, yeah, she's a Dalek.
Yeah.
That's the inside of a Dalek. And that's all I want,
Mm-hmm.
Like, give me the Impossible Girl, but give me really subtle clues throughout so that when it's revealed, I'm like, oh, that time in that episode when this thing happened.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
And, like,
but
that's
not what he wanted.
I'm not trying to, like, jump ahead here and act like this is guaranteed to not be satisfying in the end. It just, like, as from where I'm sitting right now, I'm just trying to explain, like, my feelings on the way this is going and my relationship to the mystery as it stands right now, because that's all I've got to go on. And I just feel very at sea. And that's part of why when the doctor asks her, okay, but who are you? I was just kind of like, oh, are we still asking this? Like, there's no point to asking. She clearly doesn't know anything. And I don't expect her to know anything. And the doctor's not getting any answers that indicate anything from anybody. It could be, like if he had talked to the woman in the last episode, the empath, and she said she has such and such surrounding her, or so, like anything that sort of felt like it was, but all she says is she's just an ordinary girl.
Yeah.
Literally could not be less helpful in that regard. I got nothing. So I just feel very much like resigned to just, well, I'm going to stop asking questions.
Yeah. And if they were writing Clara to be a little more something, just something else. Mm-hmm. She's just so, like, all right about everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just go with the flow, which isn't terrible as a companion goes, but if you're also going to have her be this big mystery, you need to make her more interesting beyond her perfect face. And how cute she looks in clothes.
Yeah, I really would kind of like if she were more, like, less chill about everything, or maybe not as eager, and the doctor has to convince her more than he does, because the idea that she is, he is drawn to her because she's mysterious. I would enjoy it if she really it wasn't mutual. If she was kind of like, all right, well, thanks for saving my life this time around, and I'll see you when I see you. Yeah. I would find that really amusing, and him being like, no, why don't we hang out and get a drink? Why don't you come on a trip with me? And her being like, you know what? I have work tomorrow, but thanks. I'll see you again, and like, that would be much more fun for me, is like him obsessing over her and her kind of being like, why, what are you doing? Why are you here again? You showed up at my work. You showed up at the coffee shop I always go to before I go to work. You just happened to be at the pub when I went after work. You're at this like weird mixer and pretending to be somebody.
Stalker, basically.
Well, literally, yeah. But the doctor, it's always played as if things that he does are charming rather than threatening. So we can just let that happen and let him be charming rather than threatening for this. And watch the way that she reacts to things and what's going on around her. And there'll be clues buried in the watching of her that would help us like put things together. I feel like that would just be so much more interesting than her being sort of bland and the doctor just occasionally trying to surprise her with a question that doesn't make any sense to her and makes her a little bit scared of him, as it turns out. And she says something about how, like, she's more scared of him now than she is of the TARDIS as it's like breaking down around them. And it was kind of, for me, I was like, are you? Because I don't believe you. You don't seem that scared. And she often doesn't. And I'm like, is she just not that great an actress? Or is it part of the thing with her just being so stoic all the time that it comes across as boring rather than like brave? I don't know. But anyway, so we haven't talked about this episode at all in any form. In any way, almost in any moment. So we start off with the Van Balen.
Yeah, Van Balen.
I feel like it's Van Balen, but I just want to say Van Balen because it's like Van Halen. But they are a group of brothers, and we find out that they really are brothers later, who are scavengers, basically. They take they take like junk ships and pull them apart and take the pieces and resell them. And it's honestly like a pretty neat idea. And there's a part of me with the start of this episode that I was like, I would definitely watch a spin-off of these dudes like just traveling around and discovering junk and getting into scrapes because of the shit that they find or who they're trying to sell to or buy from. I think that could be really interesting. It could be like a sort of Gone in 60 Seconds, but in space. Do you know what I mean?
No, because I've never seen that movie.
I haven't seen it either, to be honest, so I actually could be talking entirely out of my ass. I guess I always thought Gone in 60 Seconds was like, we steal cars and then we like strip and rebuild them. But I realize now I don't know that that's true. They may just like sell the cars as is, which is much less fun. But how about it could be like that whole thing in John Wick with John Leguizamo where he like, you know, turns the cars over. Like that, but in space. I feel like that would be a really cool spin-off show. I'd be interested. But what happens is they're trying to get a good score. There's the TARDIS flying by, and they use this thing to stop the TARDIS because it doesn't have its shields up because the doctor is teaching Clara how to drive it. And at first Clara thinks that she did something wrong, but it's apparent pretty quickly that somebody is doing something to them. And the doctor appears somehow on their ship without, it doesn't seem, going through the front door of the TARDIS. I didn't understand how he got out there.
I don't either. Because it also looked like he was underneath the TARDIS.
Did it?
Like, didn't it show, like, just his feet or something? Maybe he was just under some rubble.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit to see the moment where it's sort of... Because it almost looks like it blows up or something. Or no, maybe that's just like the beginning of the credits. No, I think it does. So, okay, so they're all standing there and staring at the TARDIS as it's brought in with the, like, what do you call it? Crane or something? But I didn't see his feet or anything. And it gets sort of just like dropped in this random scrap area on its side. And the doctor like comes up from behind them when they're busy trying to open the doors of it. Mm-hmm. I just don't get where he comes from. I don't see his feet. Where did you see his feet sticking out of?
It was like you see a pair of shoes sticking out from underneath some of the wreckage. It's right after, like, there's the scene where they're on the TARDIS and the magnet, whatever, the tractor beam has grabbed them, and she burns her hand when she picks this thing up that comes back later. And then these notes say the machinery of the salvage ship pulls the TARDIS into a bay, and believing it to be a derelict escape pod, the brothers attempt to cut into it but are unsuccessful. Tricky's bionic eyes pick up signs of a living being, a pair of shoes sticking out from under the wreckage.
There it is. Yes, I'm watching it. Like, it's so funny. As you were saying all of that, that scene finally popped up. Okay. As I was like, okay, yeah. He's like the Wicked Witch of the West. Oh, that is
yes.
super funny.
Well, the East. We're going to be pedantic about it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm the doctor, and you are Van Balen, and Van Balen, Van Balen, and Van Balen. That's going to get confusing later. This is so much worse once you find out that Android Man is actually a human brother.
Yeah.
Because this brother is yelling at him, like, keep your oily mouth shut. Just, like, keeps on basically using, like, slurs, like, borderline slurs, to keep him in his place while, you know, knowing that not only is this person not a robot, but is your little brother, which is just so fucked up and unconscionable.
Well, he's mean to the other brother, too, the older brother. He's like, don't try thinking about things. Yeah. Just do what I tell you to do. Like, he's just a complete ass.
Yep. Yeah, it's really like, first of all, he's super hot. So that really made me so sad that he's super hot and he's also the asshole of the episode.
Yeah, he is really hot.
He winds up, like, sort of being redeemed, it seems, later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's a real part of me that, like, I can't forgive something like this. This is the sort of thing that if you are capable of this kind of ongoing cruelty, I don't buy that you suddenly become a better person. You will always be somebody who was willing to do that in the first place. And that is something I can't understand or get past.
Willing to do all of the things that he does. He steals that piece of the TARDIS later that's like...
Yep.
The doctor says, don't take that. That's a piece of her. Yep. He's like, I don't care.
Yeah, he literally, like, there isn't one moment where he isn't given, like, every opportunity to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And he still pulls some bullshit. So, you know, as much as I really, like, understood what they were trying to do, the show just does this, like, centrist thing a lot of the time that I can't get behind. That they just try and be like, well, see, everybody has good inside. No, they don't. Not everybody has good inside. And even if they do, it's often a surface good. It's not like actual morally guided, this is what I believe in goodness. It's the cameras are rolling, so I'll say the right thing goodness. And that's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just moments like this where I'm like, yeah, white people wrote this episode for sure. Like, it just feels so wishy-washy that I lose patience. And something like this, like I said, this would not be okay no matter who this kid turned out to be. But finding out that this is his little brother is so much worse.
And it's not just so worse because it's his little brother. That's bad enough. But it feels like his little brother had some kind of accident. His brother was the smart one who his father made the captain of the ship. Mm-hmm. So he had this accident where he lost his vision, he lost his ability to speak, and he lost his memory. And so here's my time to take my power grab. And we're going to make this guy think that he's a robot because we gave him these, you know, bionic eyes and a voice box, and now he thinks he's a robot. And the other brother just goes along with it so they can have some fun in space.
Yep.
Like, all of them should really be thrown out an airlock, except for the one who was taken advantage of.
Agreed. Yeah, guys, I have just so much less tolerance than I used to for the, like, redemption story. Because it always feels really facile and superficial. It doesn't often, to me, feel like any real sense of redemption. Where somebody truly, like, there is regret there that is unrelated to getting caught.
Yeah.
It's always just like, well, this is inconvenient, and now I have to apologize because, you know, like, the Star Whale episode will never be lived down for me. That we're just supposed to be like, oh, we definitely enslaved and tortured this animal, but now it wants to help because it's just like, and we're just going to do that and pretend we weren't, like, letting children be eaten, so we thought. Things like this that we're just supposed to forget, and it's so indicative of, like, so much of what's wrong with our culture, I think. This idea of, like, the past is the past, and we're meant to just move on. When you haven't acknowledged the wounds that have been caused by what you did, and there's no way to move on until you do that. And it's the kind of thing that I know this show isn't, like, meant to be taken super seriously in that regard, really. But the show takes itself pretty seriously sometimes with that sort of messaging. So it doesn't really get a get out of jail free card on that when it decides to get kind of preachy and, like, in the text. If they're going to do that, then they have to be willing to be held up to that sort of scrutiny, and they just don't really pull it off most of the time. So, you know, if you aren't going to stick the landing, just don't bring the subject up at all. Just don't do it. But they keep doing it. So, yeah, this whole thing is just, like, it's heartbreaking because, like, once you find out what's going on here, this kid is so despicable anyway. You see all of his behavior throughout the episode. He's just a real piece of shit. And then once you find out about that, it's just like, oh my God, you are so much worse than I even thought. And I really thought that you were the worst. But basically what the doctor does is, because they're like, oh, well, if Claire is in there, then she's definitely dead already. So you may as well just sort of like let that go and cut your losses. And the doctor tricks them into coming into the ship by telling them that it's going to be their biggest salvage they've ever gotten. And for some reason, it doesn't occur to any of them to wonder how he can so quickly shift to helping them salvage his ship after losing a friend that he was traveling with. And they are not suspicious at all. And immediately follow him inside. They're super greedy. And the doctor locks the doors and tells them that he has the Tardis timed to self-destruct. And if they don't help him find Clara, they're all going to die. And understandably, they are agitated because of this. And we then have the moments of splitting up. Because what are the brothers' names? Do we remember?
Tricky is the one who thinks he's a robot.
Right.
Gregor is the asshole.
Okay.
And I don't know if we know the other one's name.
Let me see if Amazon X-Ray. Gregor, Tricky, Bram. I think it's just Bram or Bram. It's Bram.
Yeah, okay.
So Gregor, he has this, like, sensor that tells him what's on the ship. Mm-hmm. And he starts, like, getting readings of, like, really incredible engines and, all kinds of language being used that does not mean anything to me, but apparently is very valuable and worth risking everything for, despite the fact that they are on what, as far as he knows, is a suicide sort of mission. He's still not willing to try and, get out of this with his life only. He still wants to strip the ship and thinks somehow, I don't know why, but thinks somehow that he is going to be able to strip the ship, help the Doctor find Clara, and then leave? And the Doctor's just going to let him go, despite the fact that clearly the whole, command center of the TARDIS has nothing left to it?
I think that he's not so concerned about what the Doctor thinks, and probably would have, his plan to get what they can to salvage off of this ship. Who gives a fuck about this guy? We'll just kill him. Throw him out.
But
whatever.
As far as he knows, the ship is on a self-destruct, so he thinks that they could just turn that off themselves, does he?
I don't know what he's thinking.
Because, he just does not seem to be thought through at all. And that's not to say that this is necessarily a plot hole, because some people are like that, and they don't think things through at all. So that's not exactly, unbelievable to me.
No, I think that he's so, I'm gonna get mine.
Yeah.
He's basically a Republican.
Trenchant. So this whole, thing, with them splitting up, he winds up in this room with this tree-like machine that is awesome looking. What a cool design this is. Is this original to Doctor Who or to this episode?
None of this stuff has ever been seen. This is the most we've ever seen of the TARDIS.
Okay.
And this is the first time that anything other than that closet of his that we saw at the beginning of when Matt Smith started on the show.
Wow.
We saw a little bit of his closet. This is the most you've ever seen of the TARDIS. There's been allusions to things. We see a glimpse of the swimming pool. Back in the day, they didn't have the budget. So all you ever saw was the console room.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And what I read was that Stephen Moffat always wanted to see more of the TARDIS. So he tasked the writer of this episode, because, when they're breaking a season, all the writers are given, okay, episode 10 is going to be yours. And the showrunner figures out where he wants to go, and he'll say, this one's going to be about Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. We're going to see more of the TARDIS. So that's your plan. You take that idea and run with it.
That's cool.
So he gave this writer, I want to see more of the TARDIS because we have the technology to do it. So let's really, see some more of it. So all of this is their imagination, what they wanted to make the TARDIS do and look like. And so, yeah, that, basically, Weeping Willow or jellyfish tentacle room with those bulbs that, help the TARDIS change shape is really cool.
Yeah.
And we do know, I don't know all the details, but a TARDIS is supposed to be able to camouflage itself anywhere. So it's supposed to be able to look like anything where it'll blend in. But this one is stuck in the look of a police box.
Right. I forgot how that, was established so early on, and I just keep forgetting that's the thing.
Yeah. So I think that technology comes from this room, too, that it normally would be able to completely, make itself over outside as well as inside. But I think those bulbs sort of control what it does that we see it doing, where it's making labyrinths and all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Cool. Well, it's unfortunate that this dude does not pay attention to the warning the Doctor gives, because they could have avoided all that. And the Doctor just tells him over and over again to stop trying to harm it. Stop wielding your tools so that they look like you're about to try and cut into it. Stop grabbing at things like you're about to pull it apart. And he just doesn't listen. And then when it looks like the door has disappeared, he just goes into threat mode yet again. And when all of a sudden a door appears, after all, he takes that as the TARDIS being afraid of him, rather than, oh, there's clearly something else going on, and this isn't a door like it looks. And it's just so frustrating to watch people not listen to a person who is like the expert in the thing. This is like climate change deniers, not listening to, you know what I mean? Like, and just being like really fucking thick-headed, and then being surprised when the shit every scientist said was gonna happen begins to happen. Surprise Pikachu face.
For a second I was like, what?
You know.
And then I got it.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so God, it makes me so crazy. I hate watching people do this, and it's not, like I said, this is not necessarily a jab at the writing. This is just how some people are. Some people are illogical and stubborn and greedy to the point where they will self-harm and not even realize that's what they're doing, because that's how fucking dense they are, and that's how certain they are that everybody who's giving them advice is out to get them somehow. Yeah, maybe you think that because you're out to get everybody, and you can't imagine someone just telling you something for your own good because you've never been altruistic in your entire life. But that's a story for another day.
Also, just being so arrogant that if someone who knows this ship, like, this is my ship, I know what this ship can do. Don't take that. Like, he's not just trying to, like, I don't want you to hurt my ship, or I don't want you to, you know, I'm not just doing it because it's my position. It's because I know what this ship can do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can create machines on its own. That's super cool, but that's because Time Lord's really smart. You can't have it, though.
And not only that's super cool, but that's super dangerous. Maybe don't make an enemy that can just create, like, copies of weapons and shit. Just don't piss it off if it has that sort of capability. That's my advice.
Yeah.
This seems like basic fucking common sense. Ugh. I'm disgusted. I'm sorry, guys. It's not about the show. You know what it's about.
It's about
world.
Yeah. It's about how garbage humans can be. And continue to be.
So, as this is all happening, Clara has woken up under a piece of broken wall or something. And she finds herself deep in the TARDIS in, like, an area that is not familiar to her as she's looking for the doctor. And there is something chasing her that is super creepy looking. And I have to say, between this and the fucking, like, melted wax monster of the last episode, the creature design this season has been much better.
Yeah.
You know? Other than the lizard dude on the submarine, I feel like it's all been pretty effective. And what we find out is that she's in, like, the TARDIS, in order to sort of punish Gregor, is that what we said his name was? Has made, like, a maze, so it looks like they're going to a certain direction, but then it turns out they're going in circles.
Yep.
And this is something that, like, throughout the episode, there's just, like, doubles of rooms or doubles of hallways or triples of rooms. And eventually, Gregor, like, goes off on his own, and the doctor is left alone with Tricky, and winds up, like, figuring out that Oswin is also here in this control room on a, like...
Clara.
Oh, Clara, yeah, that's the one. Well, you know. But and that he can hear her, but
it's
he
an
can't
echo,
see
and
her.
we've seen this at the Echo Rooms before in the episode that Neil Gaiman wrote called The Doctor's Wife.
Yeah.
Which is about the TARDIS becoming human, essentially. Amy and Rory were on the TARDIS, and it made basically a replica or a version of the old control room, and they were able to control the TARDIS and bring it back to, I guess, take her out of, a human body and bring her back, her soul back to the TARDIS, whatever.
Right, okay.
So it's that sort of same thing where it's protecting Clara. So whether or not the TARDIS likes her or not, it's protecting her. It brought her to the console room.
Right.
And it's not really letting her leave. She's also on a loop. She keeps ending up back in the console room. So it's almost like parallel universes brushing up against each other. And the Doctor says, there are moments where it's thin, and I could see her for a second.
Yeah, and it's because he's in his own Echo room, and it's sort of like because of the fact that Gregor isn't with him anymore, right? That the TARDIS created this Echo room to keep him safe because Gregor went off on his own, and she's just like, oh well, as long as that asshole isn't with you.
Well, and the other one, Bram, went and started taking apart the console.
Right. That was another thing that made me so sad, was that Bram agreed to that. And once we find out what they've been, how they've been gaslighting their brother, it makes sense that Bram would go along with it, because obviously Bram was not a good person either. But that really bummed me out, that he doesn't even put up a fight or ask, are you sure, or anything like that. He's just immediately okay, and takes off to do it. And I was like, did you not just hear him talk about how the TARDIS will have a tantrum? Does that not, and of course it doesn't mean anything to them because they don't seem to understand what that even means.
Well, they've never seen a ship like this before.
Right. But, oh God. Anyway, I'm just getting caught in a loop here. I'm in the TARDIS. So eventually the Doctor's able to...
Can we talk about the library room, though, since we went past it? That's dope.
Yeah.
We also see basically a glimpse of where the Doctor sleeps. He has a little cot. That room where she picks up a little paper mache TARDIS.
Oh, yes. And I thought that was a cookie jar.
She tosses it like it's made of paper.
Yeah, maybe right. Yeah.
She picks up an umbrella, which is a reference to a previous Doctor, which I'll go into in the trivia.
Okay.
So I think there's little clues hidden in there of things that he's collected over time, and that's where he sleeps, and then she ends up in this library with, I don't know if these are all Gallifreyan books, or if it's just from all the worlds, but I would spend all my time in there.
This is the thing. And I'm just like, dude, you didn't even tell her about this clearly, which is just so selfish. Let her use the awesome library you have. God.
And then we've got the history of the Time War, which would be an interesting book to read.
She just opens up to the middle.
I know. I was thinking about that too. When I come across a book that I'm interested in, I definitely do flip through it. But I start by looking at the first few pages, and then I sort of flip through.
Yeah, find out if there's contents or, something to give you a little bit of an overview. Introduction by the Doctor.
The other thing that I thought was interesting were there were these jars of Gallifreyan Encyclopedia, or Encyclopedia Gallifrey, whatever it is.
Okay.
And one drips open, and you start hearing a bunch of stuff. It reminds me of not really the memories in Harry Potter, but kind of. That you would drop into the...
Oh, in the Pensieve?
In the Pensieve, and then you could experience them. But it kind of reminded me of that sort of concept. These were little jars, but that's all of the history or everything you would ever need to know about Gallifrey.
There's a series that I'm covering, and every time I get a chance to, like, if somebody's like, what audiobook should I listen to, or what new series should I start? I've been trying to plug it lately because it's so good. The Cradle series. I keep saying it, but seriously, guys, go and read the Cradle series. It is so much fun. It is so much fun. And
is this the one with the giant turtle?
Yes. And they have what are called, like, dream tablets. And they're basically like lesson plans that are interactive that you can, like, drop into. And they're often made by somebody who is, like, of a very high level and can infuse an experience of their own from their life with this, like, magic that creates the interactive memory. So basically they got into a fight against somebody of a specific fighting type, and they use their own really badass technique to fight this person. And then they make a tablet of it, and you can drop into that memory and sort of be almost in their mind and watch from their point of view and see how they fought and what they did and feel everything that they felt in the moment. And that when it starts to sort of play, I was sort of thinking of one of those things.
You haven't watched Watchmen yet, have you?
No.
Okay. Never mind.
Sorry. But anyway, yeah, everybody please go read the Cradle series and you will thank me later. And I will thank Andy forever for commissioning it and making me a lifelong fan and a diehard stan. And I'm very, very angry that I'm about to be caught up in a couple months because I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyway, okay. So the doctor eventually, he manages to use the screwdriver to sort of like stop the like weird echo overlap thing and pull Clara into the control room where they are.
Yeah.
I felt really bad for Clara too, because she's being menaced by one of these burnt to a crisp looking creatures.
Well, when I watched this the first time, not the very first time, because who knows when that actually was, but the first time for this rewatch, there's that scene where she's like looking at the thing and it's sort of looking at her. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, and I don't often figure things out ahead of time because I'm just not that kind of TV watcher. Mm-hmm. But I was like, it's her, isn't it? Mm. Because she was moving in the same way that Clara was.
Oh.
Like she was a mirror image, but just her like physicality, the way she held her head, the way she had her shoulders. And I was like, either that's Clara or it's a very good mimic. So it's going to be one of these things that gets revealed.
Do you know whether or not they had the actors themselves dress up in the makeup?
They didn't. They're
body doubles?
It's in the credits who played the whatever they're supposed to be.
So I guess they were a good mimic. Huh.
Yes. Yeah, but I thought it again today when I was watching it. Like, she is moving so similarly to the way Clara is currently moving. Yeah. Like, that's a really good...
See, that's an example of a mystery with a piece that we could maybe have put together. And this is what we're after. I find that really interesting that they used a body double instead, though. I assume that it would just cost too damn much to pay those like high-priced actors probably to do something that you don't even get to see their face and know it's them. So what's the point? But damn, like once you find out, because the doctor keeps telling her, you would rather not know, I promise. And she keeps pushing him to tell her the truth. What are they? And normally when somebody's like, you'd rather not know, I'm like, fuck you. But once we find out, I'm like, no, he had a point. I would rather have not known. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, knowing is better than not. Most of the time somebody says, you'd rather not know, or you don't want to know. And you find out and you're like, oh my God, that was crucial information. Why would you act like this is the only thing going to keep you alive is knowing this? What are you talking about? But this is one of those moments where like knowing doesn't really help or give you an advantage, really. Like it's not, there's, the doctor knowing winds up helping them because he's the one who sort of gets them out of it with the big friendly button. But her knowing doesn't really help. And so I kind of unexpectedly, retroactively was like, all right, I wish I didn't know. Take it back. I don't want to know. Very upsetting, man. Ugh. This makes me think of, have you seen that meme where it's like you're sitting alone in your house on your couch eating Cheetos and all of a sudden these like two people appear in front of you and one of them says, and this is what you will become. And the other person who looks very somewhat like you, but a better version says, stop plaguing me with these ghastly visions, spirit. And then they both disappear and you're sitting there like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And that was sort of like how I felt about where it's just sort of like, I don't want to be made aware of the fact that like, oh yeah, something horrific winds up happening to you that like you probably couldn't have changed or done anything about. And not only does something horrific happen to you, but like it doesn't kill you, evidently. She's running around, and so are the others, just fucking trapped in this like horror show forever. You know, like I don't know if they actually ever die or if they like, you know, whatever this time loop is just keeps them alive in a weird way. But either way, that's too long. Neither of those is good. You know, do you continue to age and then die a natural death, but you just look like a charcoal briquette the whole time? Like, that's not better.
I think he rewrote time, so those creatures aren't just existing in another version of whatever.
Wait, say again?
I think he rewrote time. He went through that, like, little time rift that was made where the TARDIS was sort of broken.
Right.
And reset things. So I don't think any of these burned creatures actually end up existing.
No, but I'm just like, if they were, like what they were seeing was at that
Their
time
future.
that future was going to happen.
Yeah.
They were apparently just running around the ship still alive, but like in this state.
Yeah.
Which is so much worse than just like, oh, we're all going to die. Oh, you wish you were all just going to die. It's not even that easy, you know? It's just horrifying. God, it really is. It's horrifying. It was so upsetting. Ugh, you get made into this like weird zombie creature that I'm not even sure what they're after. They keep menacing her and the others. Are they trying to eat them? What do they want?
To kill them? I don't know.
Why? What does that do?
Maybe they just want to hug them and be like, I'm so sorry that this is going to happen to you.
Oh my God, would that be so fucking funny? If it turned out they were just really wanting to help and give them a hug. Honestly, I'm sort of surprised that they don't do that because they love doing that in this show. The monster's just misunderstood. And it turns out to be them. You would think that would be even more so.
Was there one of these that was supposed to be the doctor? It didn't seem to be.
Yeah, I don't know if, like, it's very unclear to me what kills him and what doesn't exactly. You know, like, would he be trying to regenerate when something else goes wrong and then he dies? And if he does he turn into a thing the way that a human would turn into a thing? Or would it affect him totally differently?
I don't know. Would he just regenerate?
You know, that's like... And if he does just regenerate, then what does he do? He's got these things climbing around in his TARDIS. Does he just open an airlock and, like... It's cold-blooded.
Bye, Clara. I guess there's another mystery I'll never solve.
Yeah,
you died
you know?
again.
So I'm trying to think where we go from that moment. Because we have kind of jumped all over the place.
Yeah.
All right. So Clara gets pulled into... Oh, right. And then she winds up in that hallway where she sees herself. And that like the other versions of her are walking back in both directions. It's like either side of the hallway is a different version of her, and it's real creepy, and I really liked it. I especially like that it's creepy, but then she has a moment of saying, "Now you're beginning to creep me out." It was very appropriate, and it was actually pretty funny.
She's seeing basically the minutes before they started at the beginning of the episode where he was like, "No, you should pilot the TARDIS. You want to pull that lever." Like, that's the conversation they were having leading up to that.
Right. But it's just good timing because I was getting creeped out. And then she's saying, "Now you're beginning to creep me out." And I'm like, amen. Yes, indeedy. So, boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doop. I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the best next move for trying to explain what's happening. Because this is when they get chased and we get the reveal of exactly who Tricky is.
Yeah.
It's an odd moment, too. Like, Tricky is, throughout the episode, seeming to, like, sense things as if that's, like, the mechanical bond between an android and the TARDIS. And then you find out that he's actually a human. And so I guess that's just him being, like, very sensitive.
Yeah.
It's
just empathetic, can, understands that not all machines are just machines, I guess. Like, he can tell with the TARDIS that it's a little bit different than just your average ship.
Yeah. I feel like if I were a shitty person like his brother, who knows that this kid isn't actually an android and has been lying to him the whole time, and then this dude tries to say, "I can feel that this ship is upset. I can tell," I would just be like, "No, you can't, dude. Stop it. No, you can't. You're making that up." I wouldn't even, like, buy it on a basic level because I would think that he was, like, it was all in his head because he was feeling like he had an affinity for the thing that he doesn't really have. And that was I appreciated the reveal, especially in the moment where he gets, like, impaled by one of these pieces of, like, what I want to call rebar, even though that's not at all what they are.
It's just like a pole.
Yeah. He's telling his brother, like, "Just chop off my arm. It'll be easier to replace. I'm not real. It's fine." And he's saying no pain, no fear, but he's clearly in horrible pain.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird moment where I was like, you keep saying no pain, but you are obviously, like, tearing up and gasping. What do you think that is, if not pain? What is that what's going on in your head, sir? And we find out, like, I assume that doesn't seem like pain to him because he just so assumes that he can't feel it.
Yeah.
And what has led him to believing that? Has he had to endure physical abuse at his brother's hands who have told him that he's not actually feeling anything because he's an android and he can't? Because I feel like I would not put that past them at all.
I wonder if every time he's like, "Oh, that hurts," they're like, "You're an android, though. You can't feel pain. What do you're just..."
That's just sensory input.
Yeah.
Like, that feels like the kind of thing that if you're cruel enough to do this, then you're cruel enough to, like, play that knife game from Alien. And then he gets stabbed in the hand and you're just like, "Yeah, whatever, dude."
Yeah, this poor dude's just being gaslit every time he has a feeling.
It's so horrible. This is such a fucking horror show. This whole episode's so sad and upsetting. So finally, yeah, the doctor, like, comes up to Gregor and is like, "You better fucking tell him." And we get the whole reveal. And when you see how, like, betrayed Tricky is, the doctor says to Gregor, like, "Don't forget this." And I guess that's supposed to be, like, the basis for how he becomes a better person later on. But I don't buy that one. I want to, because I want Tricky to, like, he deserves better. But I just don't really buy it. But for now, I mean, I thought that was a good reveal. The idea that somebody is seems to be human and turns out to be an android has been done. Mm-hmm. But the idea that somebody thinks that they're an android and turns out to be human is not as often done.
Yeah.
I know that this is a thing in, like, the Fallout games. Owen was telling me about it, that there's, like, you know, there are synths who they look human but are androids. And then there are people who, like, believe that they are synths and they are clearly not, but they, like, live in a really weird way because they have this idea of, like, not being fully human that is incorrect. And so they are not very healthy because they don't eat properly, and just a weird idea.
It's like that chapter of World War Z.
Yeah.
Where the person talks about the people who decide that they're just going to live like the zombies.
Yeah, the Quizzels.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm going to say Quinel, but that's a cooking term. But yeah.
Quizlings.
Quizlings. That's right.
Yeah.
World War Z is so good.
It really is.
Guys, I covered it for the podcast and it was 4 hours long.
It really was.
Too long. It was literally 4 hours. I'm not exaggerating or being cute. You can find it. I had to break it up into 2 episodes. It's the very first one. All right. So, what?
My cat decided to bite me. She bit me so hard the other day that she broke the skin.
What a bitch.
She I was petting her, and I took my hand away, and she grabbed my arm, like she does that sometimes where she wants you to keep petting, so she, like, hugs your arm a little bit. Mm-hmm. But then she decided to bite my arm, and then she just started, like, really digging in there, like she forgot she's a house cat and decided to be some kind of tiger. And I pushed her away, and I was bleeding in 3 places.
Wow. She really wanted those pets.
Really pissed about it. I had to, like, wash it and, like, alcohol and then put Band-Aids on. It's like, Jesus, you little mean little fatty.
Jamie, is that any way to talk to your co-host?
I'm surprised you can't hear her. She's purring so loud.
I can't, but sometimes things will come through in a recording that don't come through, like, while I'm on the phone with you. So it may be that I'll hear it later.
I'm not going to pet you if you're going to be like this.
I love this. These ultimatums.
She's leaving.
Okay, so then we have the scene with the doctor and Clara outside, but they're not really outside. It just looks like they're outside, where he gets in her face and asks her, like, who she is. Are you a trap? Etc. And he, like, finally, it's like, you really don't know, do you? You're just Clara. And squeezes her face like an Italian grandma. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? And they go back inside to the engine room. And the engine is, like, in pieces floating around in white space. It honestly looks like an Apple advertisement of some kind. And this is where he, like, at first is really upset because he feels like he should be able to do something to help. And he's here fucking impotent. But then he's looking at Clara and he sees the burn on her hand that has been, like, materializing over the course of the episode. We see, I think we saw, like, several minutes ago that it said big friendly button on it. Mm-hmm. And when he sees that, he realizes what happened to cause that. That was one of those where I'm just like, well, thank God somebody figured it out, because, like, obviously I know what it's referencing, but I don't get how it got there. And it turns out that, like, he scratches big friendly button onto the thing that they used to start the tractor beam to trap the Tardis, and tosses it through this, like, gap in time to his earlier self.
Yeah.
And it's an odd... I'm not entirely sure why this, like, restarts it?
I don't either.
Okay.
It basically, like, causes them to, like, it makes the TARDIS disappear off of their scanner.
Yeah. It just, like, is that... So it just makes it so that all of that never happened.
Yeah.
But why is Gregor different?
I don't know.
If he's never met the Doctor and none of that happened.
It's like that moment, like, stayed with him somehow. The, like, empathy gene suddenly worked.
All right. Well,
It doesn't, like, narratively make sense. Because the Doctor goes through this whole thing about how when he restarts all of this, Clara's going to forget all this. She's going to forget this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the main reason that I was confused on that. And like I said, I want Tricky to be treated better, so I'm not, like, trying to ruin that. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to me how it's like this is where we stray from a scientific explanation to simply because magic. Mm-hmm. Right? Which, just have to sort of allow. But at the very least, like, he's standing up for his brother against his other brother, who apparently hasn't really learned to be better because of history, because he didn't get a talking to. He just got burned up.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was that happened to him. So that makes sense, I guess. And I'm trying to see. I feel like there was one other thing of significance that happened at the end there. What else did I miss? I feel like, is there something else right at the end?
No, not really. He asks Clara if she feels safe with him, and she says she does.
Oh, yeah, that is it. That's what I was thinking of. And it's, like, super important to him, her answer. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't entirely sure. Is this just about his paranoia about her, like, dying again somehow?
I think so.
Okay. But, yeah, so she tells him that she does. And she's out here, like, with wet hair. She clearly just came from a shower. I just want to see that part. I want to see where she picked this outfit out from, which is weird. This is such a 90s feeling outfit to me, considering the year this was actually filmed.
And considering that most of the time she's kind of dressed in sort of retro clothes that are a little more... Like, the dress she had on earlier had a vintage feel to it.
Yeah, definitely. Had that, like, scallop collar going on, and yeah. It's really, like, this moment was, I had a Rose flashback, because it felt so rosy to me, because of it being so 90s, and it just felt like something that she would wear. And I don't really feel like I have ever gotten to a point where I'm okay with a t-shirt or long sleeve shirt under a sleeveless dress, personally. I have seen it done, and it was called fashion, and I have never agreed with it. And I find it very off-putting whenever I see it. It's like, to me, it's just like, well, just find a long sleeve dress then. What are you doing? Oh my God, there was a really great ad the other day that was like, I don't even remember where it was, but the woman was wearing a, like, turtleneck underneath a spaghetti strap dress. And it was truly, like, I took a screenshot of it because I was like, this looks so terrible. What are they doing? And I was going to share it with people and just be like, can we all agree that this is a terrible look? And then I was just like, what am I doing? And I dragged the screenshot to the trash. Because I was like, nobody cares. But it made me so upset.
It's very 90s.
So
that
90s.
Specifically. Yeah.
I just don't get it. You know, there's some fashion that's like that for me. I just do not get it. But that's what she's wearing. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. Is her telling him that yes, indeed, she feels safe, and him apparently being still, like, pretty paranoid about whether or not she actually is. He seems to feel like keeping her alive is, like, his job now. Like, it's almost a personal affront to him if something were to happen to her again. But I'm, like, of the opinion that her dying is just going to help you figure out what's going on with her. So maybe. Probably you just do sort of have to let her die again and then see what happens. But, you know, he doesn't want to do that. Which, why would you? Every time she dies, it's like a real death. It's not like she's, like, regenerating like in a fucking video game. She truly seems to die, and then she just happens to be somewhere else also. But yeah, so that's the end of the episode. So, do you got trivia for me, girl?
I do.
Give it to me.
This is the first televised story to include the word TARDIS in the title.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
As the TARDIS leaks the past, several voices can be heard. They are the voice of Susan Foreman saying, I made up the name TARDIS from the initials time and relative dimension in space. I believe that was the first Doctor's granddaughter. She was his companion. The third Doctor saying the TARDIS is dimensionally transcendental, and his companion Jo asking, what does that mean? The 11th Doctor saying, you sexy thing, and then Idris, the TARDIS in human form, replying, see, you do call me that. Is it my name? Followed by the Doctor's exclamation, you bet it's your name. The 4th Doctor saying, that's trans-dimensional engineering, a key Time Lord discovery. The 9th Doctor saying, the assembled hordes of Genghis Khan couldn't get through that door, and believe me, they've tried. Martha Jones saying, it's just a box with that room crammed in. Amy Pond saying, we're in space. Ian Chesterton asking, a thing that looks like a police box standing in a junkyard, it can move anywhere in time and space. The 5th Doctor saying, you've changed the desktop theme, haven't you? That's it. And then the 7th Doctor's umbrella appears. I think that was a key part of his costume, that umbrella.
That is a lot.
Yeah. A couple of those I was able to make out when they were happening. But I didn't realize there were quite so many.
Yeah. Shit. Well, I just, like, it was such a short moment. I'm just shocked they were able to fit that much.
It's like that scene in The Rise of Skywalker where I guess all the dead Jedi, like, speak to Rey, and it gives her strength to, like, whatever. I don't remember. I've seen the movie once. But there were all kinds of voices in there that I didn't realize until I read about it later. Like, I remember hearing Ewan McGregor.
Right.
But I didn't know a lot of the animated Jedis that I know now from watching the Clone Wars and Rebels, that there were several characters from those shows whose voices were heard. And, like, basically all the other Jedi that we've met. Not all of them, but the major ones. And I think I picked out Ewan McGregor's voice, and there were other voices, and I didn't realize it was like, when people were like, yeah, Hayden Christensen is in the Rise of Skywalker, and I was like, the fuck were you watching? It's because it was his voice, and he recorded audio just for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, Owen, of course, like, as soon as we left the theater, was, like, Googling to see who was in that moment, because there was somebody whose voice that he recognized. And I can't even remember which actor it was, but somebody says Ray, and it turns out that they, like, took a syllable out of a word of that actor saying something that ended in Ray. That was not them, like, saying her name specifically, and used that as if he were calling her name. which was like a weird choice that also I found kind of interesting. The idea that like you could use audio in that way to sort of like retcon that they said a thing, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't feel cheap because you don't necessarily know that's what happened right there, but their voice does sound familiar. So it accomplishes that feeling that you're going for of just like, oh, these are people that we know talking.
Yeah.
But okay. Yeah. Well, that's pretty neat. And I think it's interesting.
We also have a review.
Hey!
Excellent podcast, 5 stars by Jerry Rice 88 from the United States.
Thanks, Jerry.
This podcast is a really great listen. I'm going to assume this is not Jerry Rice, the football player. But if it is, that's awesome.
Yeah, update your review. Let us know. ETA, am football player. Thanks for being a fan, Jamie.
Legendary football player, Jerry Rice.
I saw a poem the other day listed on Facebook that was like accredited to the poet Maggie Smith, but everybody assumed that it was the actress Maggie Smith in the comments. And it's like, guys, those are pretty fucking common names. I'm sure there's 1,000 Maggie Smiths on the planet. But yeah, sorry, I'm off topic. Thank you for the review. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the review. See, guys, you don't have to write a book. You can just write a sentence, and we appreciate it just as much.
Just as much. So I feel like I know what I wanted to talk about. I said last week, I think, about how we were going to be having some empty weeks coming up due to the holidays. So I wanted to let you all know when those are going to be. The week of Thanksgiving, we will not be recording, but there will be an episode because I post the week after. So basically, the
week following Thanksgiving,
and the week after that, both will not have episodes because I'm taking all of Thanksgiving week off and all of the week after off because Owen and I are going away since we were going to be getting married on those weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to push that back. We decided to rent a cabin and go away for a little while as a sort of like consolation prize for the fact that we had to push our wedding back. So, yeah, guys, I will be taking 2 full weeks off. And
oh my God.
I know. So I hope that you all are ready. If you are panicking about it, there's a million Unspoiled shows. Get into a new one and you will have so much to binge. May
True.
I recommend my coverage of the Kratos series for Spoil Me? And also, the week of Christmas, of course, I will also be taking that week off. So the next week, the week after Christmas, there won't be an episode. So just prepping you on that one. It would normally be released on the 31st, it looks like. So the 31st of December, there won't be an episode.
Well, everybody's going to be doing... No, wait, I'm sorry.
No,
forgot what world we live in.
Yeah, I always like... New Year's is one of those where I always am torn between whether I want to like party or whether I want to do something sort of introspective and like goal setting. And I guess that has been decided for me this year. I don't know. Maybe I will still do a thing. I could maybe do something on Crowdcast, but we'll see. So I think that's all I wanted to mention. Is there anything else that you want to add, ma'am?
No.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you again so much for listening. You can become a patron, patreon.com/unspoiled if you want to get access to the Mistborn coverage, which will be restarting right after the holidays. Miles and I are just wrapping up Midnight Sun now. And also, Rashawn and I are still going through Song of Ice and Fire. So if you're also looking for another show to get what's the word I want? Addicted to, I guess, from Unspoiled. The Song of Ice and Fire coverage has been really fun to do in a way that I wasn't like fully expecting because I was a little bit worried about it emotionally, to be honest. But it has been great to come back to that universe. So if you're looking for something else, check that one out. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you guys again. We love you. And we will see you next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.